questions, please feel free to. Or if you have anything to state tonight, you can even do that when we have public comment. Wouldn't that be fun that you can actually speak? Good. What rank are you going for? What rank are you going for? All right. It looks like the recording has started and it is 6 p.m. I would like to officially call this meeting to order. Miss Linda, would you please do roll call?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Goldsmith,
Here.
Councilman Trollinger,
Present.
Councilwoman Bryan Ward,
Present.
Councilman Jenkins.
Present.
Madam Moram, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask our future Life Scouter if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. If everyone would please stand.
To the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Council, if you have had a chance to look at our agenda this evening, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve the meeting agenda for July the 11th, 2023 as presented.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any comments? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And we're approval of the minutes from meeting June 20th. If you have had the opportunity to look at that, I will entertain a motion for that as well.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
there's a correction to the meeting minutes for June 20th, 2023, where it says the motion failed to approve the meeting agenda. That's not correct. The agenda was approved. It was the meeting minutes that was not approved because Councilman Jenkins wanted to add the comments from Jamie Kendrick to the minutes. That failed and then it passed.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So would you like to put that in a form of a motion that we can accept the amended minutes?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we accept the June 20th, 2023 meeting minutes with the corrections stated.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the public comment section of our agenda. If anybody would like to speak, we ask that you state your name, whether you live in the incorporated town limits, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody? Okay, come on down.
It's me again.
I have not seen you in a while, so come on.
I now have the opportunity to see you again because Grandma ain't happy.
Okay, all right, state your name and whether you're in the incorporated town limits, just for the record,
It's
please.
Maggie Lyric, and yes, I live in the incorporated town limits. While I understand that the town of Plata does not have any direct oversight of the University of Maryland Charles Regional Medical Center, I feel it's important for the council to understand how the unintended consequences of population growth without appropriate infrastructure being in place before development takes place impacts the patient's management of patients in the emergency room, the Charles County EMS system, and the health and safety of the residents of Charles County. At a recent county commissioner budget hearing, I learned that Charles County must depend on other jurisdictions to assist in maintaining appropriate levels of EMS personnel. And having had my first interaction with the emergency room at the medical center, it's a wonder an EMS crew is ever in service. My 92-year-old mother suffered a fall with a traumatic closed head injury on Saturday, June 17th. After multiple phone calls, the EMS folks who came to the house took her to the medical center here in La Plata. Upon my arrival, my mother waited for 2 hours before she was admitted to an ER bed. During that 2 hours, the ambulance crew was out of service. Having been a nurse for 47 years, I had anticipated that my mother would receive an immediate CT of her head for possible intracranial bleeding. She didn't get her CT scan for almost 3 hours. Fortunately, this delay was not detrimental to my mother, and we were able to take her home that evening. In conversations with family and friends who are familiar with the EMS system in Charles County, I was told it's not unusual for ambulance crews to be detained in the emergency room for 2 to 4 hours waiting for the ER staff to assume care of a patient they transported to the facility. When my mother was released from the hospital, there were 3 ambulance crews with patients on stretchers waiting for beds. How long they waited is unknown. While this incident points out issues with the ER at the medical center, it also points out the unintended consequences of population growth without appropriate infrastructure being in place before development takes place. A comprehensive, adequate public facilities ordinance should address roads, water supply, sewage treatment, as well as agencies and processes that support the safety, health, and welfare of the citizens of Charles County. By having adequate fire, EMS, medical care, including adequate ER capacity, hospital beds, adequate police, etc. Decisions made here to annex and/or approve development not only affect the residents of the town of Plata, but also the residents of Charles County.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anyone else like to speak this evening? Okay, moving on, our under matters of council discussion, on-call excavation and utilities management contract. Well, there you are. Come on down.
Mayor and Council, thank you very much for the opportunity to come before you tonight. We, as you know, and as expressed by one of our residents about growth, and we have shared concerns in some way with operations, and we're trying to address that as we continue to grow. In these situations, we maintain a large infrastructure. As you know, we have 40 miles of water pipe, 40 miles of sewer pipe, and about 25 miles of stormwater pipe. Quite a lot of infrastructure to maintain. We also maintain 26 pump stations, 5 well sites, 3 water towers, all of those kind of things. And depending on when we run into challenges, which we may, and opportunities, we may or may not have the ability to call people back at night and be able to repair things in an emergency. In the past, I do maintain on-call contractors, but I do that through a phone call to a local contractor who I know, and I say, can you help us out? Can you send some operators to give us a hand? We've done that, and it's been on a time and materials basis. With this, we also are doing this basically on a time and materials basis. We like to buy all our own materials because, number one, we can buy those materials tax-free. We can't pass along our tax-free status to a contractor. And on top of it, they pay the tax, but then they mark up the tax with their markup on the materials. So in this contract, you will notice that the town will be buying all of the materials. And this is basically a labor and equipment contract. We put it out to bid. We received 2 bids back, one from Bay Country Contracting, which we have utilized before. They did the excavating on the Willow Lane pump station job where they put all the pipeline all the way to the sewer plant in for us. And we have worked with them with that job in the past. They're out of St. Mary's County. McKenzie is out of Prince Frederick. They're out of Calvert County, I'm sorry. And we have not worked with them in the past. When we looked at the rates and we analyzed the rates in this contract, we felt that we would like to be able to have both of them as an opportunity to contract with, but we would prioritize Bay Country first because their rates, when you looked at it together with the other, it was a situation where we felt like they would be of the higher priority, we would use Bay Country first and Mackenzie second. So we would like to bring this forward. This is something that unless it's on an emergency basis where we had a larger problem, anything that we planned over $20,000, we would still go through our standard bid process and bring it back to the council. But in this case, this opportunity would be one where if we had an emergency at night or we were backed up and just couldn't get to some of these projects, as long as they were small, we would contract with them directly for the equipment and the labor to do these projects for us. So I am recommending tonight that we contract with both, and it would be for a 1-year contract. It would be for a total sum not to exceed $250,000. And we could utilize them on an on-call basis. So I'm recommending that we approve this to approve both contracts. We would sign both Mackenzie and Bay Country up. And we would utilize them on an as-needed basis as we, for emergencies, generally speaking.
Thank you, council. Questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Stahl, so our staffing is adequate. We approved staffing, so we do have the staff that we need. This is in the event that the job is more than what we currently have staff for?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And a lot of times it'll be at night. Depending, Councilwoman, on, like, for instance, where I've got a bunch of people on vacation, I
Gotcha.
may not have enough and I may need special people to come in and have operators or things like that. It would be something that would give me the opportunity to call contractors in to utilize them for things that I might not be able to get to. Most of the time, for some reason, our water main breaks. They don't necessarily occur at night, but we fix them at night
Okay.
just because we don't like to shut large numbers of citizens off or our commercial sectors off during the day. So we wait till the night to fix them.
And so where's the 250 coming from?
From our budget,
It's from
the
but
operations
it's
budget.
budgeted for.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's 250 max, but we may or may not use that 250 because we're going to be using them on an as-needed basis.
We have project funds that we put in our budget, and I think we could, turn to the town treasurer and
No. My question is, you're saying 250,000 is what you want us to approve, but we wouldn't necessarily use that 250 if we're not calling them. You said we're going to use them on an as-needed
Absolutely.
basis.
we would agree in this proposal, we're saying that we would go no more than $250,000, but it might be $25,000.
Gotcha.
It might be $10,000.
Thank you.
I can't tell you at this
I
point.
understand.
exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Jenkins from Ward. Councilman Jenkins, Ward 4. Thank you for bringing this forward. Just a clarification question or follow-on question from Councilwoman Bryant Ward. So when you say on call, theoretically, could this be used? Let's say you have a number of projects that have been waiting in the wings for X amount of time in different communities, and because of the stormwater management pipes need to be ripped out and replaced along a road stretch.
Correct.
These folks could be used for those kinds of projects.
That is correct. Yes.
So it's theoretically then you could expedite maybe a quicker way to get projects on the books and fix, given I'm sure there's a backlog of folks who
There
are
is.
calling you and calling us and doing things.
Always. Correct.
Okay, because I would just hope you would say that, because I know there's a lot of stuff out there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was, as you're aware, we have over 100 stormwater projects, and we have 4 major MS4 projects coming up, and we've got the Tillman Lake project, though, the whole dam rebuild, and all of these other small projects where we were in Clark's Run, fixing pipes before we paved and all of that. That's the kind of thing that we could use some help in certain times of the year where we might need some help to come in and help out.
So I would hope then that there's some longstanding projects that folks have been
That's
concerned
certainly
about
the goal.
that you could get to and get them done.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
I was under the understanding that it was more of an emergency type. Instead of supplementing our staff, it was more of an emergency on call instead of running two parallel tracks, which would be nice, is to double your workforce by hiring, by contracting out with this on call. From what I just heard, I'm hearing that it may be the double track and not just emergency type.
Well, let me say this. Our goal has always been, we have the equipment, we have manpower, and is to utilize ours when possible. I would say that I think I could also say that with Councilman Jenkins, stormwater projects, for instance, become emergencies over time because we don't get to them in time. And so my assumption would be when I would utilize this, that stormwater project had moved to an emergency situation for us where we really need to get on it. And we just haven't had the manpower to go over and to fix it. And I'd give you the example on, was it Monday? I went to a meeting with State Highway about the stormwater pipe at the end of Centennial going under 301. And we were talking about their schedule, and their schedule was that they wanted design complete by next summer, and they were looking at bidding it out by summer of 2025. I said to them, it's on your schedule. You see it right there. But my assumption was, in my mind, that's an emergency, because we knew at that point that there were challenges with 301 and that could amount to a real problem with that situation. The same is true for a lot of our stormwater. A lot of our stormwater, we know, has reached its lifetime, and we have to, figure out priorities in it, and we prioritize everything. And my thing would be is that if we're going to call a contractor to do it, I want to know that it is somewhat of an emergency for us and it's not something that we could postpone. So I hear you and I understand, but in my mind, the ones that we would prioritize for this contract would be ones that had reached somewhat of an emergency status, where we have failing infrastructure, where, we really need to fix this now and not postpone it, because it's going to cost a lot more problems in the long run.
So do you anticipate, of course, working with our treasurer and town manager to make sure that it doesn't exceed, well, obviously you can't exceed the $250,000 without coming back here, but do you anticipate having them on a schedule? So instead of, when I think on call, I think of somebody that you called tonight or tomorrow saying, we got to shut down 301 section to work on this or whatever. Do you anticipate kind of using them as I'm going to use this word loosely, but a temp agency where you know that they are going to work on certain projects that have reached a critical status or rapidly approaching that? Again, running the parallel tracks, but you're going to schedule them. It's not going to be on call so much.
I think our idea on this, and I think with talking with my staff, was that this would literally be an on-call situation where, for instance, we have a project where this fall, we're getting ready to start paving again in October. Our plan is to pave for the FY24 in October. We start getting closer and closer, and I run into a challenge with some pipes under the road that I would need to fix before we pave. I might utilize that on call, but it would be really, hey, we need somebody out here. We need to get on these and we need to get them. I'm hopeful that this isn't going to be, utilized for the ongoing, because if I do, then I have time that I can bid other contractors. I could go get 3 contractors to come in, and each one of them get a total bid package from them and just have them take care of it instead of the way this contract is set up. We're providing, number one, the licensed personnel to oversee it because these contractors don't have licensed personnel. Number two, we're out there buying the materials for them. So we have the materials. And what they're doing is providing us with additional equipment and additional labor to install those necessary pieces of infrastructure to be able to, fix the problem for us in a short term. This really wasn't designed for projects where I can, work it out 6 months down the road. If I can do that, then we can use other mechanisms for that. If-
Thank you. You answered my
If these,
question on that.
part of the challenges with this one, we kind of wanted to test this out because with Bay Country, we honestly haven't used them in 10 years. We had not used McKenzie. We just wanted to see how responsive they would be, if we pick up the phone and call, how quickly can they come out here? How quickly can they help us? If we've got a water main blowing water out of the ground, we don't want to have that repaired 2 weeks from now. We need it repaired right away. And that's where we may need some help. So that's our intention with this one. And we're not really, we're not looking to spend a large amount of money for us in the sewer and water part of this town. 250,000 is not a lot of money in contracting wise. So it's not a large amount of money for us in the sewer and water side of things. Our projects are, as you know, multi-million-dollar projects. We're pulling them together. I mean, alone, we're currently working with Gradient Contracting from Colbert County. That contract is over $2.5 million. The contract with Norair, which is the wastewater treatment upgrade, that's $3.8 million. These are going to be much, much smaller I'm assuming that these are going to be $10,000 for this project, $5,000 for that project, not large projects.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Matt Challenger, Ward 2. So I know we haven't done this with Bay Country for a while. How have we historically, what have the numbers looked like historically for backup services, or have we not really done that?
We generally haven't had to, when we've done it before, we know what hourly rates are. And for instance, I have utilized Austin Dirt Works for certain repairs. I think you all are familiar when we did the one down here at 301 in Centennial, we used Austin. We used, when the manhole collapsed in over at La Plata High School about 7, 8 years ago, we used Jimmy Richards Excavating for that one. These guys' rates are all generally in the same area. And so but in those, honestly, we thought that Austin Dirt Works would bid on this. We really did. I was very surprised when they didn't. And to be honest, when I asked Bryce why he didn't bid, he just said, I've been so busy, I plain forgot about it and I didn't do it. I mean, I even called him and said, we've got this thing out to bid. I was very surprised when we didn't get any Charles County contractors.
So, and that's been part of the issue historically is when we needed an emergency, they've been on different projects and they might be able to work on a day or two, but they've had to come back for more lucrative work elsewhere. I mean, is that fair that we've talked about this in the past, not necessarily Austin, but just generally contractors. So we're hoping that with this kind of budget and kind of some flexibility that these folks are going to be committed to our emergencies, right?
That's our hope.
Okay.
That's certainly our hope. And, to be honest, when we have emergencies, it's just like with me. I try like heck to, we start calling around to our guys, trying to get our guys to come back in the middle of the night. A lot of times with our emergencies, we find out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that we're going to, sometimes we can plan an outage, but for the most part, suddenly we have a water leak at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're telling the guys, hey, can you work tonight? You know, we really need a crew of men tonight. Sometimes we get guys, sometimes we don't. Especially one of the challenges, honestly, has been our younger guys. We don't, most of the time on after hours jobs, it's most of the older guys who are willing to come out and to work. The younger ones really don't seem to want the overtime. You know, they don't seem to want to be out at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, when we just did the water leak down there, if you remember the one night after the council meeting, we were there till 4:30 in the morning. And that night, honestly, I would bet the average age of my manpower crew that night was probably in excess of 50, just because the younger guys don't want to have that. It's
Part of the nature of the job that you can't plan
right.
when our emergencies
That's
happen
right.
with the infrastructure.
That's right.
Is overtime pay for our workers still gonna be at a lower rate than they're contracting with the outside, generally speaking? Because we've got
Yes,
equipment, it's still.
sure, because they're paying overtime and they mark up their rate to cover, you know, profit and overhead. And so, sure, absolutely. It's certainly cheaper, and that's why we've always tried to focus in-house, because we already own the equipment. We already have covered their labor and their health insurance all under the normal 40-hour week. So, you know, for us, having the overtime it's really better to utilize our own crews if we can. The trouble is, as we grow, we're not always staffed for nighttime work, that kind of thing.
Just so we're crystal clear, it's on call and not scheduled as a parallel track, which would require, per our charter and code, a bid process, right? So it is,
We did do a bid process in this,
But-
Mayor. It was a public bid.
it's a public bid for on call, but not a public bid for if you're going to work on the project in front of the Maples that we were going to do. I just want to make sure that we're not violating anything with the bid process.
No,
I see Mr. Town Manager going, okay, I've
If
got. this
anything,
going."
we're trying to avoid the.
that's right.
The appearance of favoritism or
Right.
singling out firms. This is the reason Bobby and I talked about this, that we think it's much more fair to contractors. You have the opportunity to bid, to be qualified, be put on a list that we can utilize, because not all the time, depending on their manpower, Bobby may call them and they say, we just don't have time, or
Right.
so that's why it would be better to have about 4,
Yeah.
depending on the number.
We had hoped that we would have 4 or 5 in this situation.
Yeah.
We didn't get that because, to be honest, what I don't think is fair is to do kind of the way we were doing it, where it was just who is Bobby thinking of today? And the bottom line is, and the reality is that's what it would be. I would just start calling around. I'd call Billy Richards. I'd call Bryce Austin, you know, hey, can you get me a crew together tonight? Can you know, get me somebody today? And that's not really fair because it really wasn't a public bid. In this situation, we put out a public bid. We got 2 bids back, and we're saying we'll utilize both of them. And we're telling you what the priority of that is. That's about as public as you can get in this situation. And we're not allowing them to buy the materials because we're buying all the materials that are necessary in this situation. So it's not any type of
Yeah,
unfairness. It's really bringing it to light so that everyone sees what we're doing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, additionally capping the expenditure at 250,000. If any individual project would exceed 20,000, it would still have to come back to council for your review and approval.
And the only thing I would say in that, Brent, is if it was an emergency
Right.
and it went over $20,000, it might come back to you for retroactive approval. We would certainly bring it back to you. It's just, I might have to spend it to fix the problem before the next council meeting. And so that would be the only
But if it
reason.
were to be utilized for backlog stormwater projects, for example, then that's something that maybe.
We could certainly come for that approval. Absolutely.
Great. So we're looking for a consensus to move this to legislation for today. Councilman Goldsmith, Councilman Trollinger,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bryant Ward,
Yes.
Councilman Jenkins,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Thank you so much. Thank you for answering our questions. All right, now it is the town pension plan. Come on down. If you feel more comfortable sitting, because I think this might be a little longer than maybe, then you can do that or you can stand.
I was trying to get some guidance from you guys. But really, right now, the first step they're gonna do is analyze what we currently have and what it would cost to bring,
what it would cost to bring it to the town to administrate. So that's really, that memo was just for more of an information. Hey, these things are going to come up as we go through the process.
Okay, so you're looking for guidance today for a consensus to move this forward to legislation to authorize I have it right here, the amount that we said before, in order for them, first of all, just to do an analysis of our what
It-
we have the state pension right now.
That would be the first step, but that 50,000 covers from the analysis of what we have and building a pension plan.
Okay,
Yes, it includes the whole thing, but it's when we get that analysis, that will also come to you guys for review before we move on to the next steps.
so it's kind of, we're going to pick what is most important to be
Not,
analyzed,
so the,
incorporated.
so what they're going to do is look at what employees plan with the Maryland State Retirement, those exact benefits that they get right now. What will it cost for the town to administrate those benefits?
Okay,
And you guys will then have that to talk about. And then we'll move from there in the next step of building the plan for the additional benefits for those employees that qualify.
and also, well, we're building a plan, looking if we keep it as is, but adding.
Yeah, I mean,
Ancillary.
yeah, so you're gonna get what it costs for the town, then you can decide, hey, we want to continue to build the plan out so that the town administrates all benefits, pension benefits, or you can decide, well, this is actually more than what we wanted. We want to stay with the Maryland State Retirement and build up on this plan to fill in like the gap so that those employees can retire earlier.
So defined benefits versus,
Well, it still will be a defined benefit plan.
okay,
As far as contribution benefits plan, that's another option that you guys can explore after you look at their analysis of their current plan.
seems to keep coming up, doesn't it? But thank you for that. All right, questions?
Yes. I'm not clear. Why are we paying them to analyze a plan that we know how it works? It seems,
It's not how it works. It's what it would cost the town to administrate those benefits.
it's gonna take $50,000 for them to review an existing plan that they should already be familiar with.
Well, that 50,000 also includes creating a new benefit plan,
Okay.
pension
That was
plan.
my
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a whole package.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
the first step is analyzing what we have.
Okay.
Yes.
You keep saying a plan. Are we looking at strictly a plan for everybody? Or are we looking at maybe several plans?
It's one plan, but that plan can have like, right now, those who are in administrative and management roles will continue getting the same benefits as they get with MSRA. And those that have a more strenuous job, police officers and public works, having a different benefit to allow early retirement. So it'll be one plan, but encompass different benefits for the type of employee.
All right, question.
Yes, so I would like to just kindly ask that when we get these memos, that your ask is in the memo. Because I think I mean, we're given a lot of information. This is obviously a complicated, and very important issue for all of the town employees. But it seems like when we get them, there's ancillary information that's not before us, but the ask isn't readily apparent. And I don't think it's like a nefarious reason. I just think that when we look back and we track our progress, because it's been going on for a long time, it's helpful to just be, say, a little bit more blunt and simple with what we're doing. And I know you guys have put a lot of work into this, but when we're looking at it, we're talking about other things that are not before us today. And I appreciate the outlook in the future. But, and I think Madam Mayor's questions were very helpful, because when I read the memo, I'm not sure what we're doing with this information. Do you know what I mean?
So the purpose of the memo was just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm going to be needing as we move forward.
Right. So just referencing, like, okay, the town's budget to build a plan. You know, my thought is, well, that's a chicken and egg, right? Like, we don't know what the plan is going to cost, so how are we going to budget it? And that's if we're.
The reason I asked that is because they asked me what the budget was, and
Of course. And that's
I didn't
why
know.
And to Councilwoman Brian Ward's point is, we're gonna pay them $50,000 to figure out what the cost is. They shouldn't be asking us before we even pay them what our budget is to formulate a plan around it. And I know that's difficult when we're dealing with this, but the majority of this memo is about something that we have no information on or ability to answer on. And so that's just an ask as we continue this process, because you guys put in a lot of work and effort, and a lot of people are looking at it, and we want to make the best, wisest decisions possible. But I want to be sure that we're not putting horses behind carts and everything as we go. That's all. That's just a request. Thanks.
All right, any other questions? Okay.
So I guess to follow up, Councilman Jenkins, Ward 4. So again, this is for all town staff. And then it could be, once we know the cost, there can be a next phase to look at, well, do we stay with state, or we have some other hybrid, and we can mix and match, and then that will be costed out, so we'll know what the cost would be sometime in the future. Is that
Yes.
succinctly? Okay. And I would just underscore and concur with Councilman Trollinger's comment, because I was confused. I had a whole set of questions to ask, and now I don't have to ask them, because at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is get the information so we can make a decision. Because the other, I mean, I understand again the point of what's going to cost in the future, but again, I have no idea what, if we don't have the numbers, how do we know? So I'll just say it and leave it at that. Thank you.
All right.
I guess just a follow, just because this is a lot of money we're spending. So they know the overall, I guess, will of the council as to looking at the higher demand jobs among different departments, right? That have an earlier burnout rate, et cetera. Are we going to receive back different options as to that? Let's clarify that. Or is it just simply, this is what our plan currently is?
The first step is what our plan currently is and what it would cost to bring it in. Then they will build one plan. That means, say that one plan, the officer retires at 55 and it will cost 20, I'm just throwing out numbers, 20% of eligible employees to cover that. They're not going to then say, but you also have a plan of retired at 57 for only 15%. They're not going to give you that. It's going to be one plan, and this is the benefit for that plan, and this is what it's going to cost.
So that's what the $50,000 is going to do. We're going to see, here's what we have now. what we have now, we're bringing it to the town of La Plata for our amazing staff to take over. That's what it's going to cost. And then from that, that's part one. Part two, they're going to say, okay, now, if you were to take this and build this plan, this is what it would cost the town to, with these different scenarios.
Well,
The big
One
umbrella
scenario, yeah.
with the two
Yes.
kind of
yes,
ones we've identified. Okay,
yes.
crystal clear to me.
So what's that cost then going to be to analyze what we're actually asking for?
Yes. So what they're gonna do is, like I said, tell us how much our current benefit is gonna cost the town to bring in-house. We already know it's 11.32% of employee salaries with the Maryland State Retirement. We already know that. We don't know what it would cost the town for those same benefits. It could be lower, it could be the same, it could be more. We don't know that yet. And that's what the first step is. And then the second step is, now, what do you want to add to this plan? Which would be for officers in public works being able to retire at, say, 55 instead of the age plus year service equals 90. So then they would tell you, well, with that benefit, this is what the employees will get, this, and this is what it would cost.
Right, so we don't know what that second part,
No, not,
this has nothing to do with any of our discussion of what we're actually ending to.
not right now. The first step, so the first step is to get the approval to spend the 50,000 with Bolton to do the study. The first step is to do this, the analysis of what we currently have, and then what we want.
That's what Councilwoman Bryant Ward was asking, that we're paying 50, so, but I guess it's a variation of that. We're not currently self-administering the plan.
Correct.
So I don't know that that was ever the goal. I think the goal, I mean, is that necessary in this process as to what it would cost for us to handle the current plan that we have? Because that wasn't really what we had talked about, or.
That's what Bolton will do. Now, if you guys want to change it and say, hey, we don't want to leave the Maryland State Retirement, but we want to add a gap to it or a secondary benefit, they can also do that.
Okay, but self-administering our plan is not the only option, correct?
Well, I'm not sure. I know the Maryland State Retirement we currently have. They take care of that. If we want to go to some other pension system, we can look at that. But Bolton, they're doing a study of what if we administrated it, not if we were going to somebody else to take care of it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
No, go ahead.
Is that the only way they can assess this? I mean, is their only option is to come in and do an analysis of what it would take for us to administer the plan versus telling us the best plan that we can get for what we're asking, whether it stays with the state
Yeah,
or not?
no, they can. So when I talked to him, he said, your imagination is the limit. You need to tell me what the budget is, but you can, whatever you guys want to do, they can work with.
Okay, clear. But then why start with spending money to move the plan from the state to us? I don't know how much that's going to take, but
That's part of the process. I personally agree with you. I would stay in the Maryland State Retirement and look at adding to it for
then,
early retirement.
well, then we're not going to let him tell us how we spend our money. We're going to tell him that that's not what we need. What we need is a plan for our officers and our public works. Now, how do we get that? Is it in collaboration with the state plan, whatever?
Mhm.
But that, I just don't see that that's where they start. And I don't think they get to dictate to us how we spend our money. Let me finish one last statement. I assure you, I don't want, yeah, of course, your imagination is the limit, but that's going to be a cost to that imagination. And we don't have that money because we've got other things to do in getting this plan operationalized. So I'm not sure that starting with an analysis of what it's going to take to bring the plan in-house, unless they're saying somewhere in their minds that that's the best way to get this done, best and most economical way to get this done. But if that's not what they're saying, then I don't think we start with spending money that way.
I agree with you.
And
I
also,
agree with
But
you.
you're in charge.
Yes, but I can't, you guys were looking for a plan and I'm starting with, they let me know this is the process. So I'm coming to you and telling you this is the process. But after discussions, so I've talked with Tom twice, once on their process and then throwing out some ideas after the last time we talked regarding the pension is this an option, a gap plan or a secondary plan? And that's when he said, well, we can do what you want. You just need to tell us what your budget is. So I absolutely agree. I would start that way. Let's look at building on the Maryland State Retirement and staying in it. And that also helps those other employees that have already vested so much time in the Maryland State Retirement that isn't going to get this extra benefit. So I definitely agree with you. I would say start with looking at a plan to fill in the gap of letting those public works and police officers retire early in conjunction with the Maryland State Retirement.
Tell them that.
Well,
If you guys are good with that, I will tell them that.
Yeah, I think you have to remember that we were also piggybacking off an RFP that.
Yeah,
Bolton had
and that's how they-
responded to.
yeah.
So that sort of put guardrails in place that we're trying to operate within. You know, we could step back. I don't know that that's the best option because time is everything, but, you know, I don't want to go out and do a separate RFP for this.
When I talked with them, they were like, well, this is what we did. We're piggybacking off on, this is what we did for Carroll County.
So
This is what everybody else
flexibility.
piggybacked on, but we don't have to follow the same steps.
And I really appreciate the identification of what their process is, but it's got to line up with what our goals are.
Mhm.
And I don't think, I mean, amongst the probably many different options there are out there, self-administering from the town's perspective is probably the lowest on the list because it's going to be the most expensive. We mean the manpower to do it,
Mhm.
the experience,
Mhm.
and that's a continuity issue that goes generation, right?
They'll administrate the plan after they build it. So they will take on that for an additional fee to administrate the plan.
and
So-
how do we pay for it? You'd have to raise taxes in order to pay for,
I mean,
that would be an option in order to pay
yeah,
for that.
I mean, we are, with the last budget, our revenues were under our expenses and we are using fund balance to cover some of those.
So just another question. So when he's asking you, what is our budget? He's asking, what is our budget for this study?
No, what are
Well,
you?
there's no way he can ask us.
Well, no, because we look at it percentage wise, just like Maryland State Retirement, we're spending 11.32% of employee salaries to have that defined benefit. So they're asking how much of the percentage of the salaries, which I could easily give because I know that. But again, once we get that in place, of course, the cost will go up because you got to cover the costs of the plan, salaries go up.
But let's just not get there yet.
Yeah.
We got to get a plan before we
Yeah.
start talking about
Yeah.
salaries going up. So let's not go there. Let's just figure out, right, how we get the plan to cover the police officers and public works. That's what we want. Now,
Yes.
how do we do it? Do we back it into the Maryland State Plan? Is it something different? But I think that's where we start. That's, to me, that just doesn't seem to be rocket science for them to be asking all of these questions on arbitrary percentages. Percentage of what? Percentages are nothing. I mean, a percentage of 10 is not a percentage of 100. And so we can't give them a
Well,
percentage.
I think they're looking for, like, that LEOPS would have cost the town 36.91%. They're kind of looking at, well, you guys already decided that's not going to happen.
Because it wasn't the best
Mhm.
plan. When we looked at the benefits of it, it wasn't the best option. It was a name that was thrown out there. We're way past that. But so whatever the percentage has to be what you say based on where we are financially and the number of officers and public work folk that we want to bring on. That's it. What does it take to fully be ramped up at some point? What would that look like? And I
Mhm.
think we can get there with that understanding. And as we grow, and
Mhm.
I mean, we frown at taxes, but we haven't raised taxes. And we're the only reason we're looking at this is so that our town can be safe and we can manage our utilities in an efficient way. And so it can't be on the back of the town forever. It has to go back like everybody else. And if we're doing it for the communities, then the communities should be willing to pay some of it. It's not a huge
Yes.
thing, you know?
Mhm.
And so I just think that we, you know,
I think I was
move
just,
forward with the study. I mean, I know we're not there yet, Mayor, I'm sorry. But
okay.
all of the other stuff we can do.
Would you want me to move forward with the study with the assumption that we're going to stay in the Maryland State Retirement and build
I
on
want
that?
you to move forward with a study that's you think is in our best interest
Okay.
based upon what you know about the numbers and the staffing and what it costs.
Okay.
So I guess what the consensus that I'm going to ask.
I still have a question. We're not there yet. So I'm not understanding why we're paying experts if we're predisposing what the plan might be. Isn't what we're trying to do establish what type of plan, given what our priorities and goals are, and have them identify the cost and nature of what the elements would
That's
be?
part of the study, yes.
So why would we then say, hey, how is this gonna work in the Maryland State Retirement Plan? Go do it, right? Why cannot we say, these are our goals and these are our priorities? You guys find out,
Which we've said.
right?
It's just-
You guys find out what the options are.
I
Is
can
that
approach
not
that
an
way.
option?
No, I can approach it that way. Again, it's just, I want to make sure that we are like, I guess, on the same page, that it's one plan. So we can't look at there aren't going to be like 3 plans to choose from. It's going to be one plan. And that's my concern, is that you think that there's going to be a variety to choose from. Oh, we can look at plan A with officers retiring at age 50 and it's going to cost this much. And then we can look at plan B where officers can retire at 55 and that's not what's going to happen.
We have no idea what it's gonna
I know.
look like, and we have no expectation.
So I think what we're looking at, if I can summarize this, is we are going to throw this ball back at you because you're the expert. And you are going to consult with Bolton, and you've heard what we're concerned about.
Yep.
We want the best, most affordable options for our employees. But that doesn't necessarily mean wasting money. So, and as Councilwoman Bryant Ward said, taking that 50,000 and creating a plan where that might not be the best option. So, and Mr. Manuel, if you can guide me on this. So we're looking for a consensus. Should we look to a dollar amount to spend no more than, or should we, because our treasurer has heard our wishes. For the consensus, it's moving forward because we have legislation. What are we looking at now?
Yeah, or is the consensus that we need to go back and work with Bolton? Is this still consistent with what we're representing tonight with what the council's desires are? Or do we need to, are you comfortable with, we'll get what we need out of this legislation?
That's what,
That's the only thing we
Yeah.
have forward at this time,
And-
so.
once it's approved, I can have them start working on it.
But what's the it?
Yes.
The plan, the best plan that the town can fiscally fund and that provides the best benefit to those public works and PD employees to retire at an earlier retirement age than they can do with the Maryland State Retirement.
So with the legislation in front of us today, that would not work. We would have to say, thank you, and you're going to go back to them, or
No,
are we
it-
able
it-
to
It's
do
still,
that with the?
Question is
it's
still
still
falls
part of,
within
yeah, it still
those
falls in
parameters.
that,
As long as you
yes.
understand
It
what
still
it's
falls,
going to be.
yes.
Not,
All right, yeah.
not to throw a wrench, but I remember, and I, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Townman, I thought there was several years ago, under the former treasurer, there was a study and there was a chart that had, and they compared different plans and different
have that.
costs. And so I, maybe it's my fault, but I thought that's what the study was going to do, was look at that kind of a process or that kind of analysis and say, based upon the actuarial study of our staff and youth service and all that other stuff, what are plans, what are options out there? Stay in the state plan or do something else? And that report, and I can't find it.
Do you
To
have that
me-
report?
No, I don't, but it's
To
still.
me, laid out options and costs and what it would cost the town and what it would cost employees. And I guess in my simple mind, that's what I was hoping this would do now. And we've waited frankly close to a year, and I just, we need to get with it.
Is that, Mr. Manuel, is that something that should be brought back up? And Michelle, I don't know if you have that. Obviously a report is out there,
Mhm.
and is that something that,
Yeah, we can try to find that report. But then it gets us back to the question, do we want to move forward tonight or do we want to hold off on sort of making sure we have all the information we need to make a decision?
I hate kicking the can
I
down.
know,
It's
but-
just-
We're not gonna have all of the information
Right.
because, right, but so I think that, and I think I have that document from, Mr. Grimbo, at home.
Can
I
you
think
send
we
it to
just
me?
need to move forward, like you said, with what we want,
Mhm,
and it's up to them to deliver.
mhm.
It's not evaluating what it would look like to bring the Maryland State Plan in-house. That's not it.
Okay,
It's what will it take? What does it look like to get a good retirement for those folk who are most impacted by the wear and tear of their job?
All right. Do we understand that? So I'm looking for a consensus, moving forward with what Councilwoman Bryant Ward just so eloquently put it. Do you? Yes.
No, I don't. No,
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just so perplexed and I'm not sure. I want to move forward, but I'm not sure moving forward is gonna fix what we need to do. But that more, so right now, no.
And I am going to, which I love being a tiebreaker, but I am going to say move forward with that. We kicked this down the road way too much. We are putting our trust in you. You've heard our concerns. And between you and Mr. Manuel, I'm sure that you are going to do right by us and by the town. So thank you very much. We will see this in just a little bit. All right, legislation. That brings us to ordinance 23-16 for its second reading and consideration of adoption. Mr. Manuel.
Yes, Madam Mayor, an ordinance concerning amendment to Town of La Plata ARPA spending plan reallocation for the purpose of amending the Town of La Plata and act spending plan. All matters generally.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to accept ordinance 23-16 as presented?
I move we pass ordinance 23-16 as amended.
And do I have a second?
I second.
It's like,
All right, any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to resolution 23-22 for introduction and consideration of adoption.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Town Council, resolution concerning town pension plan study for the purpose of authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract agreement for actuarial valuation of the town pension plan and all matters relating generally thereto.
Do I have a motion to accept resolution 23-22 as presented?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we accept resolution 23-22 town pension plan study as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
nay,
nay,
For the record, just so that we have 2 nays, Councilman Trollinger and Councilman Jenkins, but with that, the motion carries. And that brings us to resolution 23-23 for introduction and consideration of adoption.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Town Council resolution concerning on-call excavation and utilities maintenance service contract for the purpose of authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract agreement for on-call excavation and utilities maintenance services and all matters relating thereto.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to accept resolution 23-23 as presented?
Madam Mayor, I would make a motion to adopt resolution 23-23 as presented, on-call excavation and utilities maintenance services contract.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Brings us down to new business and commission reports. Councilman Goldsmith.
Unfortunately, I missed the last meeting, so I have nothing to report.
Okay. Councilman Challenger.
No room.
Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
So we did have our, the planning commission had their meeting on July 5th. It was a really good meeting. Our new member was just excellent. He came prepared, and I'm just so excited about what this planning commission will do with him on our team.
It was a very good meeting. I saw that. Thank you very much. Councilman Jenkins.
Oh, I have no commission report, but I just would like to add, I guess, an observation from MLML when we had the speed dating session with all the state secretaries in the room. I know a lot of us were there, and I just thought that was, for me, it was a very productive session. I know, Madam Mayor, you did meet with the Secretary of the Environment. I did not get a chance because anyway, I had a chance to have a conversation with the Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Whitterfield, and I thanked him for his help. And I specifically mentioned Charles Street, and I hope they follow through and the money stays in the budget. And earlier this week, I actually got a follow-up email from somebody from the State Highway Administration saying that they would get back to us about an update on the project. So that was a very positive contact. And then I had a chance also to spend some time with the Secretary of Planning. She's new as well. So I just wanted to relate that was very important for us to do that. So, and it does work when we have that face-to-face contact with them.
It does, and we need to continue that. And for me, I have my upcoming events on July 14th. We have this Friday, we have Pork Donut, who will be in the house here. They are a fantastic band that's made up of some former police officers and some current police officers. The following week, on the 21st of July, we have the Steve Potter Blues Band. And then today we had one of the kids shows. July 25th, they're going to have Blue Sky Puppets is going to present Super Pig, and it's an anti-bullying show geared towards pre-K to 5th graders, where they'll recognize the importance of helping others, see everyday people doing helpful things, importance of reading and writing. So that is a fun thing. And then this Thursday, we're going to see these little tykes do some yoga along with their parents, which I will be nowhere around that because that yoga stuff is not for me. But it's exciting that they are now incorporating the exercise on Thursdays. We have a ribbon cutting that will be on July 22nd, which is a Saturday at noon. They're having a grand opening, Sparkle and Sass Dance Company. They're over the Rosewood Shopping Center. They're in the old furniture store, and we encourage council and all residents to stop by and welcome them. A reminder to all those neighborhoods, we are now accepting applications for the neighborhood event mini grant. 5 grants will be awarded up to $500 each, and the deadline to submit is September 1st. Piggying back on what Councilman Jenkins said about the MML Summer Conference, our very own Director of Planning, Janine Harrington, did a presentation on annexations, and she was fabulous on that. It really did shed a lot of light for those that do not understand the process, and she did a great job with that. And also, I will be serving on the Executive Board of Directors again for MML. This is my 5th year, and I will be serving on their legislative committee as well. So just a little presence there that we can bring back to the town and hopefully make our town even better. And then a reminder to you guys, especially today is 7-Eleven free Slurpees. So make sure you visit your local 7-Eleven. On Sunday, although I can't declare it a holiday, I believe someone might be having a birthday. And so early happy birthday to Councilman Goldsmith. I won't say how many years, but you have blessed us with many decades of being here. And then speaking about next week, we don't have anything on the agenda, so I would like the consensus from the council to have it okay not to have a meeting next week. Councilman Goldsmith, are you okay with that?
I guess I can handle it.
All right, Councilman Trollinger,
Sure.
Councilwoman Brian Morris, Councilman Jenkins?
Yes, but I would just add, I would hope that we would bring up other items for discussion, a lot of issues that we can maybe talk about in a session like that sometime in the near future.
All right, and I think that is all for my report. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Move to adjourn.
All right, so moved. Thank you very much for attending.
That concludes the meeting for this evening. Thank you for joining us.
7:05.
So what's opening? I missed that.